When wisdom calls, don't give it a busy signal. In this episode, I'm going to talk from the heart and show you how to avoid absolutely unacceptable regrets. I'm Doug Andrew. I'm here in my radio studio. I've been blessed to produce a weekly radio show for more than 12 years. I have a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos to empower you so that you will not make the same mistakes that I've made. But I have a very powerful concept, a lesson that I've learned in my life, that every single day there are moments that matter. Sometimes there's a couple of dozen, sometimes there could be 100 or 200. But I've learned this, that when wisdom calls, not to give it a busy signal. Frankly, there's been a lot of times in my life where I was so busy when wisdom called, I gave it a busy signal, and I've regretted those times. I'm going to share with you two examples of when I was so grateful that when wisdom called, I didn't give it a busy signal. Back in 1985, my mother and father were celebrating their 47th wedding anniversary. And we went to dinner at a restaurant with our family. My mother looked like $1 million that night. And she had had open heart surgery 7 years earlier by a renowned surgeon by the name of Russell M. Nelson. And he said to my father, I think she's got about 7 years. Now, my dad never told the six of us children that, but it had been about 7 years since she had that open heart surgery with this quadruple bypass. And so we're there at this restaurant. She looks like $1 million. Now, a few days later, I happened to be opening a jewelry store that I had designed for my cousins. They were wholesale diamond importers and so forth, and this jewelry store was just incredible. And I was in a big hurry, and I was closing the gate because I had about 90 minutes to go out and pick up some critical items for the grand opening the next day, and this was in the Layton Hills Mall in Utah. And as I'm closing down the gate, coming up the escalator in that mall was my mother and father, and they lived an hour away. And I didn't expect them. They didn't tell me they were coming. I said, Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? They said, oh, we were just out for a ride. Yeah, right. They said, well, we wanted to come and see our son's handiwork. And I said, oh, Mom, Dad, I'm in such a hurry. I have to go pick up these items. I'm so sorry. They go, oh, Doug, go. We'll just look through the gate at the jewelry store. I felt so bad, but I had to get these items. And I went down the escalator, started out towards the car when wisdom called. And that voice said, Doug, slow down. Spend this time with your mother and father. All reason said, I don't have time for this. I need these items, a credit card processor, a diamond. I needed all these things for the grand opening. But I obeyed that day. I turned around, went up the escalator, and my parents were at the top going, Doug, go. I said, no, we'll figure things out. And so against their pleading to go, they finally gave in. I opened the gate, took them in, and I showed them the diamond room, the unique concept, and the jewelry, and all of the things that made that store so unique. My mother loved Rum Victoria chocolates, and so I went next door and got her favorite chocolates. We sat down and enjoyed them, the little delicacies, and I visited with my mother and father. Now, I had no idea that would be the last 20 minutes I had with my mother. A couple of days later, I was mowing the lawn on Saturday morning before I went up to the store for its second day. And the phone rang. It was my dad, and he informed me that my mother had had a second heart attack. The aneurysm would burst later in the day, and she was in a coma, and the cardiologist said she probably wouldn't live. He said, if you'd like to come down with the rest of the family and say your goodbyes. We did. And as she passed away that night, I was so grateful that when wisdom called a couple of days earlier, I didn't give it a busy signal. I will always cherish that last 20 minutes I had with my mother that I could have passed up if I wasn't listening. See, I'm glad I don't have that regret. So what's the other story? Well, when my mother passed away, my dad was very lonely, but he met another wonderful woman who had lost a previous husband to leukemia, and then her second husband, where he had 5 children. So they had actually been parents of 7 children between her first marriage, and he had lost his wife. And so he had a stroke, and he became invalid the last 5 years of his life, and then he passed away. My dad met her, and they married and had an incredible relationship, lived 17 years together, helping and assisting one another. In fact, even though she was a stepmother, I never called her a stepmom. She never tried to replace my mom, but she became my children's grandma, and she was awesome. But here's the deal. We realized that my dad, as he turned age 78, he began to fall a lot, and he was losing neurological function. And so he finally went in and had back surgery. But when he got done, the neurologist realized that the nerve was not regenerating the next year. And so he told my dad to just give in to a wheelchair. Now, my father refused and used a walker the last 7 years of his life, and here's why. I have one brother, Sherm, and 4 sisters. And we were very busy raising our family and doing things, but I got together with my brother, Sherm, and I said, you know what, we need to spend a day with Dad, at least once a month, or we will have unacceptable regrets someday. No matter how busy we are, we need to spend a day with Dad. If you've ever read the book Tuesdays with Morrie, it was sort of like that. And so we went up to my father's home, and in his pantry, he had his calendar, and we circled the Friday that we were going to come and spend the day with him. Go to breakfast, go to lunch. He had something to anticipate, to look forward to for 2 months. He knew when his sons, Sherman and Doug, were going to come and spend the day with him. Now, my mother said, you extended his life unbelievably. He would be flat in bed for 2.5 weeks, not having the energy or the health to get up. But in anticipation of his 2 sons coming, he would get an amazing renewing of his body. He would come to the front door and greet us with his white cardigan sweater, and we would go out and have breakfast and lunch, and we began to capture memories. I began to ask him questions, and then we invited our children to ask questions. We videotaped, we captured hours of experiences and these memory joggers. We will never regret those Friday lunches and breakfasts we had with our father. And here's why. We had logged over 100 of those Friday lunches before March 10th of 1999. And at about 10:40 at night, my phone rang. I had been out visiting people in our church. And I came home, and if you've ever gotten a phone call that late, you know your stomach has this pin in it. Who's calling this late? It was Sherm, my brother's wife, Sue, sobbing on the other end. She had just been informed by the highway patrol who came to her house that her husband, my brother, had been killed in a 1-car rollover on a business trip on his way to Nevada to call on his customers. I couldn't believe it. Doggone it. My brother got to graduate before even Dad. Now, I will never regret those 100 lunches. If I would have waited until retirement to go fishing or talking or doing that, I would have had absolutely unacceptable regrets. I will never regret those because I had 100 of those memories of being with my brother, never thinking he would go before Dad. We were doing this for Dad. No, it was for us. My dad and I logged another 50 breakfasts and lunches before he passed away. Now my 2 lunch buddies are gone. And I will never regret those times that I devoted time to them. When things were busy and my dad would say, do you want to take a rain check? I know how busy you are, Doug. And I'd say, no, that stuff can wait. And I passed up opportunities to come ahead financially, but I'll never regret that because I had those precious moments with my brother and my father. So right now, if wisdom is calling, don't give it a busy signal. Spend time with the people that matter most to you, or you may have absolutely unacceptable regrets. I want you to seize the moments that really matter. To be able to recognize that when wisdom calls, you don't want to give it a busy signal. Spend time with those that are most important to you. If you want to learn more about how to do this and hear stories like this and many others, they are contained in this book, Entitlement Abolition. This isn't about me. This is about you. In fact, I have written this for you, and I'll gift you a copy for free. You pay $5.95 shipping and handling, and I will pay for the book. You can go to entitlementabolitionbook.com. Those stories and many more are in this book that will help, hopefully, inspire you to seize the moments that matter.